Yo, let you know, I'm mad fucking stupid because I recorded this whole thing and the reverb was freaking on, dude. So the other day I kind of like recorded a video, kind of scuff, but I was talking about Halo. And we all talked about how the character for Master Chief just doesn't work. It's a complete fucking failure. It doesn't take the point. It misses a complete point. For the most part, I only kind of just got the main gist of how that fucking show went by watching clips. So I actually never did watch the show. I watched the Netflix Resident Evil show. Yo, it's me, your hedgehog boy, talking about stuff again. So I saw all 8 episodes of the Netflix show, and I can confidently say this show is I even like the Paul Anderson movies. I think the Paul Anderson movies are a fucking guilt trip. A guilt trip. The Paul Anderson movies are a guilty pleasure. A guilty pleasure. That I still love those movies. They're dumb action movies. You can turn your brain off, and despite how bonkers they are, the guy just loves making dumb shit for his wife, and that's it, right? And the guy made the Mortal Kombat movies, which I still think are one of the best video game to movie adaptations till this day. This counting like probably like Sonic and some other stuff. There cannot be said the same about like the Netflix adaptation. I think the Netflix Resident Evil show completely destroy any chance that Netflix will ever try to do anything good. I watched the Cowboy Bebop Netflix adaptation. That was fucking bad. And now they're trying to do Yu Yu Hakusho, which is it's a crime. They're committing a crime. All the adaptation they have done are bad. So let's do and read the Wikipedia of what is going on with this plot. So Resident Evil tried to tell 2 different timelines. One taking place in 2022, the other one taking place in 2036. The plot of 2022 tells the story of Jay and Billy Wesker, the children of Albert Wesker, as they move to New Raccoon City and New Umbrella in South Africa. The 2036 plot follows an older Jay Wesker. She's now a scientist that she's doing research in the post-outbreak that inevitably happens due to the events of 2022. Kinda. Here we're told that these zombies are called Zeros. Of course, they won't call it zombies. At the end of the day, they just T-virus zombies. The only main difference right now is because they've been wandering for so long, they have become blind and deaf. The only thing that has gotten way better for these zombies are their sense of smell. That's it. That's the only difference. That's the basic info of the start that kind of like starts the show. And when you put it like that, it seems fine, but things decline pretty damn quickly because the pacing and the writing doesn't help the structure at all. Everything feels like it's all pasted together when the editor of the show just feels bored. One timeline gets boring, immediately jumps into the other one. So it doesn't ever give time to any other characters to build up any relationship with them. And the moment when things start to get bored, anything is trying to build up, it just cuts and it constantly halts over itself so many times. I kind of like the first episode because it does flow a little better. They try to connect both timelines, and I remember saying when I remember tweeting out, hey, this show doesn't seem too bad. They probably could have been like its own thing, but immediately just falls flat. One of the biggest issues is that it's trying to connect itself to the past Resident Evil games. One of the big twists by trying to connect itself into the past games is that this Alba Wesker is actually a clone. They mentioned 1998 Raccoon City incident happened. The Mansion incident also did happen because they mentioned Lisa Trevor. So by default, Jill is real, Chris Redfield is a real character, and Alba Wesker did die in a volcano. They mentioned that directly in the show. As a fan, it already kind of fucking falls flat. The first thing is trying to make a new Raccoon City, a new Umbrella in South Africa in 2022. So if they're following the game canon, right, till like 2022, that means there's two Umbrella corporations going on. Somehow, by some miracle, Chris Redfield doesn't know or hear about this. Even if they're only following maybe till like the Resident Evil 5 timeline, you will still have West Africa Delta team of BSAA knocking on their doors. Like somebody would have been knocking on their doors. So I don't know why they decided to write the story following the Resident Evil canon. They didn't have to. I don't know why they're calling it a new Raccoon City, a new Umbrella. It just won't work. Okay, so this new Umbrella was founded by Evelyn Marcus. She is the granddaughter of James Marcus, which is one of the founders of Umbrella. James Marcus, if you don't know, is the guy from Resident Evil 0. That same guy who's like in the train singing opera. And this Umbrella has a new medicine called the Joy Pill. It helps people focus better, it destroys their depression, and improves their lives. The secret sauce is that it has a tiny little bit of T-virus in it. Now, it's kind of explained that in small doses, the T-virus doesn't actually activate. But Alba Wesker found concern that if you use the pill in high doses, the user does get addicted to the pill, and eventually the T-virus will activate. This already happened in the story in another Umbrella facility in Tijuana. And they're trying to cover this story as well because somebody else find out that this actually happened. There's like a journalist side story. We're not gonna go into it. A little off topic, I think Lance Reddick as Wesker carries the show so fucking hard. Now, I don't know how many people actually do agree with me, but I think Paola Nunez, portrayal of Evelyn Marcus, absolutely nails the role of a narcissistic Umbrella CEO. I kind of like her. She's super hateable, really easy to hate, because she's a fucking bitch in this whole story. I like that. I think I like it. She does nail the role. So the show would have been a lot more better actually. If they have taken the plot of like, you know, Alba Wesker is trying to actually find a cure for the T-virus so that way they can actually sell these pills to people. He doesn't want another outbreak happening. The problem is that Evelyn is power hungry. She's power hungry, she wants money, and she doesn't give a fuck. Because in testing, it seems like you really need like 30,000 doses of the pill. And they're saying, oh, well, you don't need that. You need so much, it's never gonna happen. So I think the conflict between these two would make a stronger show. Because for me, a story happening inside Umbrella and having that political conflict between these two would actually make an interesting story. But once you add the Wesker daughter into the mix and the future plotline, things start to lose ground. The story did not need a future post-apocalypse story. It tells nothing, it goes nowhere, and the only twist that it shows is that Billy Wesker is the bad guy. Duh. Which is not built up. It doesn't come up in the past timeline in the end. The only reason the daughters are involved is because Alba Wesker needs them to keep himself alive, as they are genetically enhanced humans for Alba Wesker to use their blood to survive. He's a clone. His cells are rapidly declining, you know, like Metal Gear Solid. Now, the thing is, he does care about his daughters. He tries to be a more human Wesker. It's a different side of Wesker. But it's not the same Wesker. You know, the real Wesker is egotistical and power hungry. So like I said, you know, the future timeline, you don't need the story. That's all that happens in the story. Nothing happens. The future timeline has no story to tell. There's no character growth. If they remove the future plot line, it would have make the 2022 plot a lot more better. Kinda. That's saying too much. So using the backbone of the Resident Evil canon, it makes no sense. So the thing is, Raccoon City actually got new. There was a cover story. And you know what was the cover story? Let's say you got a huge city, the same amount, like the same big as like Seattle. And all of a sudden, there's a gigantic hole. Tell me what is the fucking cover story? It was a gas leak. A gas leak in the city. This show sucks, bro. So the story taking place after the original game causes a lot of issues and so many questions. Like, anybody who knows about the games, well, the Netflix show would just makes anybody mad, you know. And the Resident Evil games are not even like masterworks in storytelling. They're super simplistic. The characters are charismatic. The villains are fucking cartoon villains. But there's simple story. You know, you got a main conflict and they go with it. You don't have anything too deep with it. Even the CG animated films actually follow that. That's why the CG films, despite not being like too crazy good, they're actually enjoyable. I like watching the CG films, except that one with John Wick action thingy. And even if we're going to like the Resident Evil remakes and Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8, that they're trying to do more of a competent story going on, you cannot take the fact that what makes Resident Evil work is the simplistic story that you can tell. You know, you can play any of the Resident Evil games without playing any of the other Resident Evil games at all, and you're still gonna have a good time. The thing about it is that if you want to get invested in the whole franchise, it does take into account that thing in the past didn't happen. You know, that's why in Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8, Chris Redfield is still around, despite Resident Evil 7 being a soft reboot. So when you go and watch this Netflix show, not seeing any mention of the BSAA, Blue Umbrella in this case, or Chris Redfield, fuck, you can even go with Claire Redfield. She's a journalist. She put herself in dangers all the time, like in the CG film. It would have grounded this into some sort of realistic expectation. If you're using the Resident Evil canon, but doesn't have any causation, or I don't even know how to say it, but if you don't have any of the one of the original characters, or even any of the bioterrorist organization look into like having like some role of what is going on, and then having a post-apocalypse going on as well, it makes no sense. It honestly just makes no sense. It makes me like, they take the Raccoon City name, they take the Umbrella name, thinking, oh look, we are look at this, fans. They're shaking like the little keys. Resident Evil fans are too invested into the lore shit. They are, like any novel Resident Evil fan who are into this game. Even if you put the people who are like not watching this story, or even if you put people who doesn't even watch the Resident Evil stories, they're still gonna have a lot of questions because there's so many plot holes going on. And then you have like clone shit going on, and then wacky Blade Alba Wesker cosplay going on. Mention of Volcano. They don't know what is going on. They don't know what's going on. And then in the original story, you got like 2 timelines going on that barely connects to any thematic plot, other than Alba Wesker trying to find a cure and Jade trying to find a cure in each timeline. And the only thing she finds is a way to become invisible from zombies, which is the plot from World War C. It just makes no sense. You're not using the backbone story to tell a competent story in this timeline, and you're making fans question everything that you're doing, and the premise alone not working and falling apart. It just falls apart in premise alone, and even on itself. they're still not gonna like this thing because it's so convoluted. You're trying, you are expected to kind of know what happened in the past Resident Evil game to have some sort of connection. Like, what is the T-Virus? What happened in Raccoon City? Who is Lisa Trevor? Who is this Alba Wesker ass guy? You know? Like, they're gonna have question, and eventually they're gonna find themselves looking at Crest Redfield, the BSAA, and Leon, and all that shit, and everybody knows about that. Anybody who has played the past Resident Evil game. Look, I know adapting game stories have always been a point of contention. There have been a lot more misses than hit. You know, you guys, the Sonic movie is a miracle that does adapt a pretty simple story, but it's very, very, very faithful to the source material. It doesn't destroy the intent the original games tried to tell. It disappointed me because the Resident Evil should have been a home run. It could have been a slow horror movie. For me, I don't think Resident Evil could work as a show, because to make Resident Evil work as a show, you need to have really good writers. For me, what makes Resident Evil works, and I think for a lot of people, is that the Resident Evil stories are always short. You can play these games really fucking quickly and go through it. Not a lot of shit happen, you know? So it's hard to like write about it because not a lot of stuff happened between the stories. But you can still make something good. And they had 8 writers for this show. They have 4 directors. I think one of them actually director for Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. It honestly screamed that this production was they wanted to shit this out for money. I don't know what were their intention to make this thing being a convoluted piece of shit that doesn't even work as a connection for Resident Evil fans and even for itself. It just sucks. Anyways, I'm disappointed. I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, and I needed to fucking take this out of my chest. I needed to talk about it because I feel like I'm the only one who kind of like have talked about the connection of the past games. Everybody has talked about like the story on itself. I wanted to talk about how this doesn't even work as a premise. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Anyways, follow my page. If you want to support me and all that stuff, I got a Patreon. I want to try making more videos. It's just hard because I also stream a lot. You can follow my Twitch. Anyways, thank you for watching. You guys are all cool for staying this long. Have a good one.